that evening, a peculiar sense of longing came over me, and I felt an urge to revisit the forsaken garden. I wasn't sure why. It wasn't exactly a comforting place, far from it, in fact. But tonight, it felt like a part of me I'd left behind. For the first month I'd been here, that garden had been my refuge. I remembered the fireflies, the winding paths, the statue of Lagina in the clearing. Most of all, I remembered the deep oblivion I'd felt after eating the mushrooms that grew there. The first time, it had been terrifying. But only at first. Then it had melted into a numb, blissful haze. After that, I'd made a habit of it, nibbling on them whenever I'd needed an escape from the memories that haunted me and the anger that gnawed at my bones. Maybe that was why I wanted to go back now, to nibble on those mushrooms again and disappear into Lagina's empty gaze. I told myself that wasn't the reason, but deep down, I knew it might be so. I put on my shoes and Howry, grabbed my lantern, and stepped out into the cold. The temple grounds were quiet as I climbed up from the 12th terrace, the lantern in my hand, casting faint, trembling light along the stone path. My footsteps echoed, bouncing back from the silent walls, as though I were the only living thing left in this place. I pulled my Howry tighter around me, shivering. The quiet tonight felt heavier, as if even the air was holding its breath. As I reached the courtyard beneath Ajura's sanctum, I spotted the familiar gate with the forsaken garden across the square. I was about to head over when something caught my eye. The 4th garden. Its iron gate, usually sealed shut, was now slightly open. A chill crept through me. I'd passed by that gate before, always wondering what lay beyond it, but I'd never seen it unlocked. I wasn't sure anyone had. A dark green light seeped through the gap, casting shadows on the stone. I hesitated, my heartbeat quickening. I should have kept walking, but my curiosity got the better of me. Slowly I approached the gate, holding up the lantern. The air beyond the threshold felt different, warm, heavy, almost oppressive, like it was pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I stepped inside, and the shadows seemed to close in. Rotten trees stretched out in twisted shapes, their branches tangled with clumps of hanging moss that dripped moisture onto the muddy ground. Patches of sickly green mushrooms glowed faintly here and there, casting an eerie light on the gnarled roots and decaying leaves. A low, rumbling sound filled the air, like distant thunder, but deeper, as if it were coming from somewhere far below. Whispers drifted on the air, soft but insistent, like a choir murmuring just out of reach. A prickling sensation ran down my neck, an instinctive warning to leave. I wasn't supposed to be here. I took a step back, feeling a bit lighter as I neared the threshold. Just as I was about to leave, something on the ground caught my eye. A scrap of dark fabric, half buried in the dirt. I knelt down, brushing it off and holding it up to the lantern light. It was a veil, impossibly fine and delicate, nearly sheer in the glow of the lantern. Faint silvery threads formed a spider's web across the dark fabric, an unmistakable symbol of Vex Lankar. My heart skipped a beat. Vex Lankar had her own garden dedicated to her just across the courtyard, the Garden of Fickle Truths. So what was her emblem doing here, on the threshold of the sealed garden? I held the veil up, tilting it to catch the light, tracing the delicate patterns of web and spider with my eye. It felt like a secret I wasn't meant to discover, and the realization sent a fresh wave of unease crawling down my spine. Then I heard footsteps behind me, coming from deeper within the garden. Panic shot through me. I dropped the veil and darted across the courtyard, crouching behind the stone archway of the Forsaken Garden's entrance. I killed the light in my lantern and held my breath, peeking around just in time to see Azura step out of the sealed garden. She moved slowly, her steps careful, almost cautious. Her usual confidence was gone, replaced by something else, an odd, jittery energy. She glanced around, her eyes sharp, scanning the courtyard as if she thought someone might be watching. I pressed myself tighter against the wall, willing myself to disappear. Azura's gaze landed on the veil I'd dropped. She froze, her expression tightening, then bent down to pick it up, scanning the courtyard one last time before slipping it into her pocket. She lingered, tense and uneasy, before closing the garden gate and locking it tight. Only then did she finally cross the courtyard and head up the stairs to her sanctum. I waited until her footsteps faded before stepping out from my hiding spot. My heart pounding. I'd never seen her like that. Nervous, almost vulnerable. The unshakable high priestess, actually worried someone might catch her. As the silence returned, I stared at the empty courtyard, still feeling the weight of the sealed garden, and that piece of cloth, the veil marked with Vexlankar's symbol. I didn't know what Azura was hiding, but I was sure now it had something to do with the garden, and, somehow, with the Lady of Lies. The next day, I couldn't keep my suspicions to myself any longer. The weight of it gnawed at me, building until I felt like I was going to explode. I had to tell someone. I had to talk to Dhalâra. The training grounds were nearly empty when I arrived, only a few stray leaves drifting across the gravel ground. Dhalâra was at the far end, practicing alone, her katana slicing through the air in controlled, fluid arcs. The cold morning air stung my cheeks, and I wrapped my haori tighter around myself, watching her move through the last of her forms. The blade caught the light, flashing with each sharp, graceful motion. When she noticed me, she lowered her katana, breathing heavily, but offering a small, welcoming smile. "Emilia," she said, wiping her brow. "What brings you here?" I glanced around to make sure no one else was nearby, then took a deep breath and stepped closer. "I needed to talk to you about something I saw last night." Her curiosity flickered, but she remained quiet, sheathing her katana and tilting her head. I lowered my voice, taking another step forward. "It's Azura. Last night I saw her coming out of that sealed garden beneath her sanctum." Dhalâra's eyes narrowed slightly. "You were spying on her." "No, I wasn't spying. I was just going to the Forsaken Garden, and the gate to the sealed garden was open. I thought it was strange, so I went to take a look inside." Dhalâra's face hardened, but she didn't respond. She only watched me in silence, her expression unreadable. Encouraged, I kept going. And then Azura came out. She looked different, almost nervous, and she picked up something, a veil with Vexlankar's mark on it. "Dhalâra, I think she's hiding something in there." Nothing. No response. She just kept staring at me, her face growing colder by the second. My pulse quickened, but I pressed on. "Doesn't that seem strange to you? I mean, she's supposed to be the High Priestess, but she's sneaking around in the middle of the night, hiding things." Still nothing. I shifted, suddenly aware of how much I was rambling. Her silence was like a wall, and I couldn't stop myself from pushing against it. If she's keeping secrets, doesn't that mean she might not be everything she says she is? I don't know. I thought you should know. "Are you done?" Dhalâra's voice was flat, and her face was like stone. I froze, caught off guard by the icy edge in her tone. I just thought.
So you thought you'd come here and accuse her, just because you saw something you didn't understand?
She took a slow, measured step closer, her eyes flashing with restrained anger.
You barely know Our Lady Emilia, and yet you feel entitled to question her, to slander her, after everything she's done for you.
I felt my face heat up. Everything she's done for me. She took my eye, Dhalâra. Dhalâra bit her lip, as though she caught herself before spitting out something she decided to swallow instead.
She did what she had to do,
she said.
You don't know the things she sacrificed for our people, for this temple. You think you're the only one who's lost something. Azura has given more than you can imagine.
But she's lying, I blurted, my voice sharper than I intended.
Lies are sacred.
But that doesn't make any sense. How can you follow and trust someone as fiercely as you do when that someone practically preaches that nothing they say can be trusted? Please, Dhalâra, you must believe me. I don't know who else to talk to. I feel like I'm going crazy.
Maybe you are.
I'm not. Come on. She's hiding something. I know it. And that garden, there's something wrong with it. It was warm there, not winter at all. Ezra even said no one speaks of it like it's heretical or something. Can't you see how suspect it all is? Azura is hiding something from all of us.
Why do you always assume the worst of her? You don't understand anything. Azura acts with the will of the Erden behind her.
I don't believe that. I cut her off, my voice trembling. You're so... she's deceiving you, Dhalâra. A tense silence settled between us, heavy and charged. Dhalâra's face had gone pale with anger, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. Just when I thought she might say something, a venomous voice appeared behind me, catching us both off guard. Deceiving her, you say? My heart dropped, and I turned, expecting to find Azura behind me. But it wasn't Azura. It was Ezra. She stepped from the shadows, raven-haired and terrifying, her katana drawn. The blade glinted in the morning light, catching onto the sharp lines of war paint streaked across her face. Her bug eyes locked onto me, blazing with contempt. You think you have the right to question our high priestess? Her voice was low, vibrating with fury. Filthy Frazé. How dare you spit on her glory? A jolt of panic shot through me, and I took a step back, but she was on me in an instant. She grabbed my haori, yanking me forward, her katana pressing cold and unyielding against my throat. I could feel the sharp edge digging in, just shy of breaking the skin. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might burst.
Ezra, stop!
Dhalâra's voice cut through the tension.
Azura needs her alive.
Ezra didn't even glance her way. Her fingers dug deeper into my collar, her face is inches from mine, her breath hot and sour. Back off, Lara. Dhalâra took a step closer, her katana now drawn, her voice steady.
Let her go. Now.
Ezra's eyes flickered with something dark, her grip tightening around my neck. The blade pressed harder, biting into my skin. A thin trickle of blood ran down, warm against the chill of the steel. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself not to flinch, every nerve screaming at me to pull away. In one sudden movement, Dhalâra lunged, grabbing Ezra's wrist and wrenching her back. Ezra stumbled, thrown off balance, fury flashing across her face as she turned on her sister. They stood face to face, the air between them charged, crackling like lightning. For a moment, it seemed like Ezra might lunge at Dhalâra, but then she scoffed and sheathed her blade, casting me a final murderous glance. She spat at the ground near my feet. Consider yourself lucky, Ferose. I'll be watching you. And remember, my sister won't always be there to save you. She turned her glare on Dhalâra, her voice dripping with disdain. And you, wasting your time on this worm. Pathetic. With one last look of disgust, she turned and stalked off, her footsteps echoing through the silence left in her wake. I let out a shaky breath, pressing a trembling hand to my neck, feeling the sting where Ezra's blade had broken the skin. My hand came away smeared with blood. Dhalâra sighed, her eyes sad and wide as she locked her gaze with me. "Come on," she said, sheathing her katana. "Let's get that wound taken care of." The house of healing were as silent as a tomb, the only sound the faint trickle of water seeping from cracks in the walls. The winter air brought a chill, even here, where moss and vines crept through the fractures, now frosted and brittle, shrunken from the cold. It felt strange to be back. After all, I hadn't been here since that first horrible night. In this very bed, I'd woken up to the raw, pulsing ache of my freshly gouged out eye. Dhalâra worked quietly, dipping a cloth into the basin beside me, her movements careful and practiced. She leaned in, her fingers gentle as she cleansed the cut on my neck. Neither of us spoke. Taking a jar from the shelf, Dhalâra scooped out a smear of gloom balm, the same dark, shimmering paste she'd used on my eye. A faint light gleamed from within, like a distant star ground into the balm. She spread it over the cut, her scarred fingers steady and impassive. "You'll have a scar," she said. "Whatever." "A bad one." I glanced at her hands as she worked, at her own scars etched deep around the root of her nails. Gods, they looked bad. And yet, she didn't seem to care about them. In fact, she'd never even mentioned them. I looked away, studying the cracked walls. I didn't care about a scar either. I'd given up on looking pretty months ago. Once I was back at Castle Lavenhugel, I'd just start wearing high-neck gowns and that would be that. In the silence, my thoughts circled. The voice from my dreams, Azura's lies, that nightmare about the children in the forest, the sealed garden, the veil I'd found there, Vexlankar. My mind strained for connections, for answers, but I only found more questions, spreading out like threads in an ever-growing web. Between the threads, my memory returned to how Dhalâra had tried to stop Ezra.
"Azura needs her alive," she'd said.
As if saving me had nothing to do with me. As if it was all about what Azura wanted, what Azura needed. An invisible wall had grown between us. I'd thought Dhalâra was my friend, but now I wasn't so sure. Her loyalty was to Azura, always to Azura. The slightest hint of doubt about Dhalâra's lady, and she'd snapped at me like I'd spat in her face. The fear took root, tightening in my chest. What would happen if Azura decided she no longer needed me alive? Could I trust Dhalâra to have my back? My pulse quickened as the thoughts spread like poison. What if, gods forbid, Azura decided she needed my other eye too? Or if she decided on a whim that she needed me dead? Dhalâra wouldn't stop her. Not if it was the way of things or the will of the gods. The thought was like a dagger twisting in my chest. I forced myself to look at Dhalâra. She was focused on her work, her gaze avoiding mine. But there was something in the set of her mouth, something restrained, like she was holding back words she didn't trust herself to say. The silence was unbearable. I took a breath, steadying myself. Will you train me? She glanced up, her gaze slipping over my cheekbones.
What are you asking, exactly?
Train me to defend myself. I kept my voice steady. You heard your insane sister. She'll be watching me, and you won't always be around to save me. Dhalâra's expression softened, just a little. Her eyes searched my face, and for a moment I thought she might refuse. But then she nodded, almost imperceptibly.
All right,
She said.
I'll train you.
Our eyes met, and for a brief moment the tension dissolved. But then she looked away, her gaze dropping back to the cut on my neck. The only wound from today we knew could be fully mended.